Hello. I decided to make this video because I was struggling to find right informations on the internet about how to set up 5-axis machine properly, and I'm sure this video will help anyone who want to build their own 5-axis or want to upgrade their 3-axis machine by adding rotary axis. As the title says, I will talk about the most important part when setting up 5-axis machine, and that is the pivot points. What are the pivot points? The pivot points is the intersection of two rotary axes, and by finding the pivot point, your machine will know where your rotary axes intersect, and that value is used when you machine the part. This step has to be done properly, so in this video I will talk about the method I used to set up the pivot points on my machine, and that worked perfectly for me. First, you need to make sure all backlash is minimal, and of course your C-axis is perfectly aligned with B, or depending of your kinematics, maybe that is A-axis. And you need to be sure that your table is parallel with the spindle in both directions, X and Y. Then you need to have your home switches set it up correctly in all axes. They are important part because you will use them to calculate the pivot points distance. Especially they are important for your rotary axis, because when you home the machine, B axis for example, the table will tilt when you hit the home switch to be perfectly aligned with your spindle. And when you home switch your C-axis, it is important when you use the 5-axis vise for example, to always keep your vise parallel to the X-axis. For the method I used, I made those brass pointers on my lathe so I can set pivot points more accurately. I made one for rotary axis with the thread on one side and the other for the spindle. My rotary axis used the worm gearbox and the shaft has already thread in the center. So I used that to make these pointers and to place them in the perfect center of my both rotary axes. So let's begin. For this step, I remove the table so you can see clearly what I'm doing. Before you start this procedure, you must home the machine. First, you need to find the X and Y pivot points. So I place the brass pointer in the center of the C-axis rotation and another to the spindle. Then I jog the X and Y axis to perfectly align two brass pointers. I use this magnifier to be sure they're aligned perfectly. Not sure if you can see. When you are done with that, you will go to your machine DRO, but make sure you choose the machine coordinates. Why? Because that's the calculation from your home switches to the exact point of those brass pointers. So you will write this number for X and Y. That will be your pivot points for the X and Y axis. After we are done with that, we are moving to Z axis. So let's start. Here I place the two brass pointers on the B axis. Again, I was using the shaft thread of my worm gearbox to place the pointer, and then I aligned the 2 points perfectly, and I used this magnifier. When you're done, that will give you the Z-axis pivot point, and you're going to your DRO and you will write this number. Again, this needs to be machine coordinates. So those 3 numbers, X, Y, and Z, are going to be your pivot points, which you will enter in your configuration file, whichever you use. For Linux CNC example, maybe it's placed in ini file, in HAL file. In Mac 3 maybe it's differently. You will see per your configuration. If you have a probing tool, you can use it to find the perfect center of the Z-axis, but I found that this method gave me the good results since I used these pointers later to check the TCP function, especially if you have a backlash in rotary axis. This pointer method I used can help you to see better if there is a backlash in your rotary axis when you change direction of rotation. When the TCP is on, the enemy misalignment will be seen by this method and by using this simple small magnifier. I hope this video will be informative for you. If you like it, support my channel and subscribe to my channel. And thank you for watching.